What's up guys, it's Will here back again, and I just have one question for you before we get started, and it is a rhetorical question, but I want you to ponder on this one. Do you have regrets in life? Because you know what, I'm willing to bet you do, and I'm willing to bet that you also have regrets when it comes to your Hot Toys collection, because it is an inescapable reality of life that you're gonna make regrettable decisions, and today, we're gonna talk about 10 of mine. But before we get started, make sure to click that like button, click that subscribe button, and click that notification bell down below so you are notified when content goes live on this channel. That said, let's Hot Toys trauma dump together today and go over some of our regrettable purchases. All right, guys, so thank you for joining me for another fun video today. And before we get into my first regrettable purchase from Hot Toys, I do just want to throw out there that if one of your favorite figures ends up on this top 10 regrettable choices list, I'm not trying to say that you're a bad person and you have bad decision-making skills or the figure is inherently terrible quality. There are some that I believe are worse quality than others on this list, and I'll explain why as we go. But there are also a multitude of reasons why I may regret purchasing a figure, which I will explain to you guys. So please don't get upset with me if I say a figure is not great on this list that you end up loving. Again, it's all subjective. It's art at the end of the day. So again, there are a multitude of reasons, so just bear with me. And in number one, we have the Hot Toys John Wick from John Wick Chapter 2. While I accepted this figure because I love this character, I knew something wasn't quite right. While this figure comes with a lot of great accessories and has really fine tailoring, it misses in the most important area, and that's the head sculpt. Keanu Reeves has been a very difficult likeness for figure manufacturers to get right. And while some are better than others, Hot Toys' first attempt at John Wick flat out misses the mark. Hot Toys are best known for their realism, and that usually starts with a high quality likeness to the actor. In Keanu's case, Hot Toys also released a Johnny Silverhand figure that reused or at least produced a very similar head sculpt to the original John Wick, and neither of which particularly look like Keanu Reeves. I think we as collectors will occasionally settle for a disappointing product because it's a character we love and need represented in our collection. Sometimes this mindset is a coping mechanism for a figure that just isn't up to a standard we need it to be, and that's what I did with the Hot Toys John Wick. It's certainly not horrible, but it's not as good as it should be in recreating what has now become an iconic and incredibly influential character in modern cinema. And in number two, we have the Revenge of the Sith Obi-Wan Kenobi. I was actually really excited to pick up this figure because I'm a big fan of Episode 3, and I'm also a big fan of Ewan McGregor's performance as young Obi-Wan Kenobi. But it wasn't long before I felt a massive tidal wave of disappointment flowing through my body. The more I compared the final product to the prototype, the more disappointment I felt. If you've been collecting Hot Toys for any reasonable length of time, you know there's often a minor downgrade in quality from prototype to final product. But this downgrade was significant. A particularly notable downgrade was in the facial hair, particularly over the upper lip. On the final product, the upper lip all but disappeared under the sculpted facial hair, to the point of looking unnatural. Hot Toys quality tends to go as head sculpts go, and this one was certainly a miss compared to the amazing prototype. While head sculpts can sometimes soften in final products, this iconic portrayal of a classic Star Wars character, it deserved better, making it one of my more disappointing Hot Toys purchases. And in number three, we have the Last Jedi Luke Skywalker crate version. Hot Toys crate Luke Skywalker is not a bad looking figure, but it's not an iconic representation of Luke Skywalker to me. And remember, I'm the sequel trilogy guy. The sequel trilogy is goated, but admittedly, The Last Jedi is the weakest of the three films. I would be willing to bet that a significant number of collectors who picked up this Luke Skywalker figure, they did so because in their headcanon, it represents an older legend style of Luke Skywalker. I bought this figure because I was sold on the quality of the head sculpt, and it does deliver in that sense. But by buying an expensive Hot Toys figure, you need to have more than a simple consideration of whether the figure looks cool or not. You have to consider how it fits into your collection, where the personal meaning lies, and how it's fulfilling some sort of nostalgic need for you. I like that this Luke Skywalker comes with his Graphic saber, since that's screen accurate and all, and the tailoring and the head sculpt are both very good. This is a cool outfit for Luke, but it needs to be more than that for me, and I quickly lost interest because there wasn't enough meaning in it to justify a purchase in the first place. And in number four, we have Hot Toys Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. The original Hot Toys Bane became a bit of a chase figure for a while there. Similarly to John Wick, Hot Toys Bane filled a crucial void for collectors, particularly for Dark Knight collectors. Bane is an integral part of the Dark Knight trilogy as the final antagonist to Batman, and while this figure was good for its time, it had one major glaring issue that we overlooked: the body. The body is far too thin and doesn't replicate Tom Hardy's proportions accurately. My man Bane was absolutely huge in The Dark Knight Rises. Tom Hardy described himself as fat because he just downed pizza and a bunch of other shit to gain weight, but I think he's just being modest. My man was swole. Now though, figure manufacturing has clearly evolved, and the Hot Toys 2.0 Bane that is set to release soon is proof of that. A fully seamless body, improved proportions, just an all-around better figure. The original Bane, you can simply put the coat on and you have a very good figure to display, but Bane's most iconic moment is his fight with Batman in the sewer. To me, that's his iconic look and moment, and the original Hot Toys figure didn't really allow for a quality display of that because of the visible joints in the thin body. While this is hardly a bad figure, we accepted its huge shortcoming in the body because we all wanted a Bane. Well, now we have a vastly superior one in the 2.0 figure, and we just gotta hope it doesn't tear on us. I'm happy I was able to display a Bane figure in my collection for a while, but due to the figure's shortcomings, I could have never displayed it in the way I truly wanted to. And at number 5, we have Avengers Infinity War War Machine. The War Machine Mark IV has the perfect look of a militaristic Iron Man suit. It's bulky, it has a lot of badass weaponry, and even has a camo pattern printed onto the armor. Combine that with the fact that Avengers Infinity War is my favorite movie ever, I felt this thing was a must-have at the time. Only one problem though, I don't give a fuck about War Machine. He's a cool character, but he's never been someone I felt overly connected to. This was purely a, this looks cool and I like the movie type of purchase, an ideology I've since moved away from because I want each of my figures that I keep over time to have some sort of sentimental value. This War Machine is not at all a bad figure. In fact, it's a great one, but I regret buying it because I should have known I'd inevitably sell it when I needed space one day. If you have this figure and you love War Machine, you should be thrilled. And at number 6, we have Thor Ragnarok Loki. As the long-standing president of the Loki fan club, I originally adopted the philosophy of collect all Loki figures. And while Loki is an amazing character, the best character in the MCU in my opinion, not every Loki costume is a banger and not every Loki Hot Toys figure nailed his likeness. In fact, most don't. Thor Ragnarok was certainly an important film for the character because of where Loki would end up, and that's his swift demise. But I wouldn't say Thor Ragnarok was one of Loki's most memorable outings. The film cast him into a more comedic role to suit the story's more comedic tone, and Loki's character development isn't all that significant. And while his outfit is cool, it's not particularly iconic. Now, when it comes to the Hot Toys figure, it certainly has a presence due to the shiny gold helmet, but the likeness to Tom Hiddleston is a little bit suspect. Like many Hot Toys figures of the past, you can look at the head sculpt and say, oh, I mean, yeah, I kind of see it. It's good, but it's not great. It wasn't until Hot Toys released their Season 1 TVA Loki that they started to figure out how to make a really good Tom Hiddleston head sculpt. The prior iterations from Avengers and different Thor films were decent for their time, but ultimately lacking the quality necessary to be deemed an amazing likeness. Ragnarok Loki is a cool figure, but it just pales in comparison to more recent ones and is not iconic enough to keep around despite that. And you may be saying to yourself, Will, but you have the Avengers Endgame Loki and that head sculpt isn't great either, and yet you kept it. And to that I say, well, the Avengers outfit is iconic for Loki. This is the King Loki outfit, the best costume and probably the biggest spotlight for the character in his entire MCU arc. While the head sculpt is mostly decent, he has a giant-ass helmet with giant-ass horns on it, covering up most of the face anyway. This is also Loki's coolest costume design and most iconic look, meaning it gets a pass, at least for now. And at number 7, we have Vision from Avengers Age of Ultron. Vision is a character that drops more wisdom on the regular than any other character in the MCU. I thought I needed this wisdom in my collection, but turns out I didn't. First thing, the proportions are a bit off. Newer versions such as the WandaVision Vision have rectified this issue, but the original version was similar to Bane in that the body felt a bit skinny. I also felt the color of Vision didn't quite accurately reflect the color we saw on screen, and I also didn't like that the Mind Stone doesn't actually contain an LED function, which remains an issue to this day with future iterations. And you can sense a trend here, but Vision is just simply not a character I have a significant connection to. He's a big part of the MCU glory days, and he does some cool shit, but that's about as deep as it goes for me. Nonetheless, not a horrible figure, but one I didn't need and wasn't satisfied with. And at number 8, we have the Chitauri Foot Soldier and Chitauri Commander set. It almost felt as if they released and Hot Toys immediately said, yeah, let's discount these two. I bought these two from Pop Culture myself for really cheap, and I still ended up moving on from them eventually. The Chitauri makes sense to collect if you're building like a diorama display where you want the Avengers to fight the Chitauri in a recreation of the Battle for New York, but beyond that, they just take up space with a middling presence because they're not really characters as much as they are face faceless minions. They do kind of look cool, but you got visible joints if you don't pose them cleverly, and they're not that important of characters to dedicate collection space to, when there's so many other good options that are available nowadays. These are two okay figures, but they're far from essential. And at number 9, we have the Wasp from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Considering this was the first true look at the character during the peak of the MCU, collectors were interested to see what Hot Toys could cook up. Well, they cooked up a pretty damn good figure. The issue became what Marvel ended up cooking up for the character. Unfortunately, with Ant-Man 2 being pretty mid and Ant-Man 3 being mostly a bust, the Wasp's characterization ended up going nowhere. At the time I purchased the figure, I was riding the MCU hype wave and I got caught up in Cast Away. I liked the wings and the overall presence of the figure, and the head sculpt for that matter, but it's simply not an important character for my collection, and I would argue for most MCU collections. The Wasp is a cool addition to the MCU, but her potential was wasted without a clear dedication to developing her further. Ant-Man 3's release has led Hot Toys to producing a new iteration of Wasp, but unfortunately, I doubt many collectors will commit due to the aforementioned issues. I do think the figure will turn out okay, but this character won't be coming back to my collection anytime soon. And at number 10, we have Han Solo from Solo. The Han Solo Alden Ehrenreich figure actually turned out to be a pretty damn good figure, but the movie was a massive flop for Disney and it went nowhere. So now there's a very slim likelihood that we ever see this iteration of Han Solo again. The reason I purchased this figure at the time was because I thought the movie was pretty good. It's certainly not great, but it's solid and fun. But as Hot Toys has dedicated more and more energy to creating excellent, iconic Star Wars figures, this figure quickly falls to the bottom of the priority list. A good figure coming from a good movie is valuable, but in today's market, it needs to be great in at least one of those two ways for a collector to prioritize it. The story and the character need to be great, or the figure needs to be so good that one can simply not ignore it. I don't think either of those are true for this young Han figure. While Hot Toys fulfilled their end of the bargain, I regret buying it for reasons more to do with the story and the character. So there you have it, guys. Those are 10 of my most regrettable Hot Toys figure purchases, and I would love to hear your most regrettable Hot Toys purchases in the comments below. It doesn't have to be 10, just name as many as you would like, figures that you kind of regret adding to your collection for one reason or another. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, it's not always because the figure is ass, it's because maybe you just fell out of love with the character, or maybe you were hoping the character would reach heights that they ended up not reaching, right? You were investing a little bit earlier and it ended up not quite working out. Over time, I've tended to curate my collection a bit and say, I'm only purchasing figures that are super of the utmost highest importance to me, and a lot of these figures get phased out for that reason. Guys, make sure to like the video if you enjoyed the content down below and subscribe to the channel. And of course, click the notification bell so you're notified when everything goes live on this channel. There's reviews, there's news, there's live streams every Friday with my bro Kiko Collects at 5:15 p.m. Eastern. And of course, these type of videos, these big picture collecting videos. And it's a lot of fun here, so I think you're gonna have a good time. So thank you so much for joining me. Will.Foxification on Instagram if you're looking for more updates. But guys, that's all from me for now. I thank you so much for watching this video. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out. See you later. Bye.